Good evening, my friends. Meteorologist Delaney Tharp here with another check-in on our current rainfall as well as the tropical threats that we will break down in this update. So right now, radar imagery is showing still those pockets of heavier rainfall as you head further into the Galax area. Still has that flood warning that is issued, that is into Grayson as well as Carroll counties, and that is until the 29th at 3 a.m. And we're still seeing those pockets of heavier rainfall that are now going to head into the NRV zone. But overall, nothing that we're seeing in terms of frequent lightning producers and just that heavy rainfall. So again, not necessarily seeing those gusty winds in rotation like we were even this time last night. It does look much improved. So we still have the rainfall right now, but once again, we will continue with this as the outer bands of Hurricane Helene do move our way. And this is the updated track as this does continue on in, making landfall, eventually projected again as making landfall as that category 4. As that moves further inland. Right now, maximum sustained wind speeds are at 130 miles per hour, moving to the north-northeast, a pretty good clip, about 23 miles per hour. We've had a lot of warmth in those ocean waters, and that is what has really been the rocket fuel for this storm. They have moved along pretty quickly. So another look at that track as this does continue to move further inland, we will be seeing the impacts. Now, this is worth noting. That cone right there that you're seeing of the actual track, that is tracking the eye, where the eye of the storm is going to be located. Now, the outer bands and the far-reaching amounts of the rainfall, as well as a little bit of spin up in the atmosphere, that is going to be much more widespread than what is on this path right here. And that's what's this concern, as we head into the next couple of days, and rather the next couple of hours. Now, we're still going to continue to track again because once this makes landfall Thursday, that is the concern. And once again, as this, within the next few hours, as this makes landfall, we're going to see the eye that officially makes landfall. Again, the definition when that eye goes over land. That is when that is officially considered a landfalling storm. But when that happens, again, that eye will still be just at the coast. But we will actually be seeing the impacts of those outer bands, and that will continue to see that over the closer we get to that eye, that is that bigger concern. So again, that is the track that we're watching, peak storm surge, as this makes landfall right into the panhandle. Anywhere from 12 to even above 12-foot gusts, that's storm surge. And this is something that the Weather Service has categorized as catastrophic and life-threatening. So again, if you have family in this zone, now is the time. It is past the time to have evacuated this storm surge. Again, catastrophic up to 1 to 2 stories. This is a lot. This is a lot. So that life-threatening storm surge that is closest to where Helene is making landfall right there within the next few hours. Now here a little bit close to home, the flood potential that we're watching. So right now we are still seeing this is the main threat for that flooding right there into northern Georgia, into eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, and western parts of South Carolina. Life-threatening flooding that is possible with this because of the size of this storm, it makes landfall, but again, the outer bands are already beginning to affect even as far north as us here in Roanoke, that we're going to be seeing this over the next few hours. Those outer bands are going to begin to filter in, and we'll start to see the rainfall. So again, flooding is a concern with this system, especially here at home. Now, flood alerts already. This map lit up. All of those greens right there, those are watches that does expire this is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock when that flood watch expires. Now these light green boxes right now, those are showing those flash flood warnings. And right now that's looking at that in Tazewell, that it does expire at 8:30. So within the next 26 minutes or so. But again, those flash flood warnings, that's when that flood is very quickly coming on here because of those light rain showers that we are already seeing, the broad amount as we were just looking at that radar image, the widespread showers that are still hanging out in our area. But that rain is falling over already saturated ground, and that is the issue, and we're not stopping anytime soon. These areas that we're still seeing that flash flood warning, Bland still getting in a little bit more of that rainfall action, but again, that flash flood, that's what we're seeing for the the quicker onset of the flood waters. The flood watch, that's what we're seeing, and that's what's put in place for the influence of Hurricane Helene. Futurecast rainfall, a closer look in on this track here in Southwest Virginia and Central Virginia. We're looking at those moderate to even those, some areas in those greens a little bit lighter, but still overall that moderate impact as the track does move a little bit further inland. We could see rainfall totals of up to 1 to 5 inches, but not ruling out the possibility in those more locally or heavier amounts anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rainfall that are possible. And again, I cannot stress this enough. The ground is already saturated from today, the day before that, really since Tuesday when we had that stationary front hanging out. And that is what brought a lot of that tornadic activity, and along with those supercells that we were watching pop up, and even last night had about 4 in one evening, more than that, more than I can count at this point, that I can remember. But we had several of those storms that were popping up, and with them, they had some pretty heavy rainfall. So the ground already saturated, and we are still seeing more. So that is why flooding is such a big concern. And if this track shifts any further to the east, that would be even more of an increased concern. So we are still keeping an eye on this as this does begin to make landfall in the next few hours. Another concern is wind. We are in a wind advisory the entirety of our viewing area, either in that wind advisory. Now this does expire tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock. The high wind warning, this is located again further into Southwest Virginia. That is expiring once again, same time, 8 o'clock tomorrow night. But this is a concern because this is the region that is closer to the inner bands of the storm. So outer bands, we're still seeing a lot of those gusty winds, but the highest winds will be in this location. So once again, the impacts are large. We still have this cone right here, and that's where the center will be traveling. But you'll see, even this map is a perfect illustration. This large swath of this wide wind field we're seeing tropical storm wind speeds from this. While the center is right there, you'll notice how wide that impact is with that very, very high tropical storm hurricane force winds. Now here in Southwest and Central Virginia, we're not going to be seeing, at least what is depicted on this map, those level of wind speeds. But overall, we are still seeing, at least in those high wind warnings areas, especially up to those 50 mile an hour wind gusts, sustained winds anywhere from 20 to 30 miles an hour tomorrow at some points. So this is a better look at the timeline of those gusty winds. So right now, the timeline for this, we're seeing those higher winds that are moving, at least here locally there. You'll notice about 9 o'clock, seeing those 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts there in Southwest Virginia. Here in Roanoke, seeing at least a little bit lighter, maybe those 30, 40 mile an hour, not 50, 60. So there is a slight difference. But that will continue to move through, and as what is at this point will likely be Tropical Storm Helene, or just the post-tropical Helene, this will meet up with another low pressure system, and that's why you're kind of seeing that little bit of a disorganization, that energy interchange between those two. But again, that's when we'll begin to see those winds that will exit at least the worst, the highest wind speeds out of here by Friday about 4 o'clock. And that will continue to die off as we head throughout the weekend. Those wind speeds will begin to lessen at least a little bit. Now we've gone over the flooding concern. We have gone over the wind concern. Tornado potential for Friday. We have seen this hurricane. It has that potential. Those in the history, rather. Rotating thunderstorms, very organized within that center, close to that eye. So as that gets closer to us and those bands get closer to us, we are still seeing the moisture that is being pulled in, that tropical moisture, and along with it, a lot of rotation, a lot of spin up in our atmosphere. So the entirety of the viewing area is included in that elevated risk for tornadoes for your Friday. So please be in a place where you can hear warnings if they're issued and stay weather aware. Again, it is very, very important that you hear those warnings, that you heed them. Grab a mattress, grab a bike helmet. If there is a tornado warning that is issued and you are in that polygon, it is imperative that you take cover, because we are seeing a lot of spin up in the atmosphere, and these tropical systems, they do have a reputation for seeing, again, with that spin up and tropical tornadoes that are a thing for a reason. So again, as we get closer to the eye and that moves a little bit closer towards our area, that's when we begin to see more of that rotation. And that's why that is a concern throughout the day on Friday. Let's time this out a little bit more on Futurecast. We will see that heaviest band of rainfall headed our way about 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That's when we're beginning to see those downpours that are headed away. So once again, this is when we are seeing those heavier bands of rainfall. Now, in the afternoon hours, this is the concern. We're beginning to see a little bit of a spin up in these tiny little individual cells right here. Those are what I'm worried about, because that is that point when they're starting to get that rotation and they have that room. They're not all in that cluster. Once these discrete cells that are further isolated, they have a little bit more room to get a little bit more of that spin up, and they're gaining all that energy. So once again, the afternoon is still that concern for that rotation, even the morning. Rather, sun up to sundown. Can't pinpoint an exact time for the best point of that tornadic, the greatest threat, however. So it is imperative that you stay weather aware throughout the entirety of your day tomorrow, because once this system moves through, we're seeing a lot of spin up in the atmosphere. Cannot say that enough. So by 8 o'clock, this is when we're going to see this wrap up. We were initially thinking this would be a late evening event, but because of the how good of a clip this storm is moving on, it's moving pretty quick right now. So it will be out of here by about 8 o'clock. The bulk of the rainfall will be out of our hair. So to wrap things up this evening in this update on what is now Hurricane Helene, Weather Authority Alert Day is still in place for your Friday. Deluge of rainfall expected tomorrow morning, waking up to a lot of rainfall. Be sure to pack the rain gear, but not only a lot of schools, even then, a lot of schools have been canceled. Been seeing those school closings roll in throughout the evening. Stay weather aware throughout the day tomorrow. For your Saturday, that's when we may see a lingering shower or two, but overall, the bulk of that activity, again, out of our hair, 8, 9 o'clock on Friday. And the one thing we haven't said in a while, high pressure will be back in control Wednesday into Thursday for the latter half of next work week. We are looking ahead to settle things down. Now, we will be with you all day tomorrow to keep an update on these storms, and we will be tracking those threats as we move throughout the next couple of hours.